Hello, feral friends and fellow nature nerds, and thank you for tuning in to this Dirt Dispatch number 59. I'm your host, Tim the Nature Nerd O'Hara. Today, I want to tell you about a summertime hawk that we get to see here at Dispatch's HQ, the Swainson's hawk. Swainson's hawks look very similar to red-tailed hawks, but they're a little bit slimmer and have a little bit longer, narrower wings. Most Swainson's hawks have a light-colored belly with a dark or reddish-brown chest and brown or gray upper parts. They have distinctive underwings with white wing linings that contrast strongly with blackish flight feathers. Most of the males have gray heads, while females tend to be more brown-headed. They also sometimes appear in a dark morph, which varies from reddish to nearly all black, with reduced contrast on the underwings. But nearly all Swainson's hawks that breed in the eastern half of their range, basically east of the Rocky Mountains, are light in appearance. Darker birds are more common in the west, but still in the minority, accounting for just a little bit over 10% of the total population. Now, Swainson's hawks have been described as, quote, a classic species of the open country of the Great Plains and the West, unquote. But if you think this is your run-of-the-mill raptor, think again. Swainson's hawks are incredibly interesting. Now, your best bet for finding one during the summer is in open country west of the Mississippi River. They perch conspicuously on utility poles, fence posts, and isolated trees in places where elevated perches are few and far between. In truly perch-deprived areas, like grasslands or agricultural fields, they're often seen standing on the ground. And that's because while mammals make up the bulk of their diet during the breeding season, during that time they rely heavily on what's called the 3 Rs of the American Buteo diet, rabbits, rodents, and reptiles, in order to feed their chicks. Outside of the breeding season, the adults switch to a diet made almost exclusively of insects. Grasshoppers and dragonflies are favorites, but they'll also eat butterflies, crickets, moths, and beetles, catching them on the wing or running after them on the ground. But all that said, they're not too picky, so in addition to rodents like squirrels, gophers, mice, and voles, and reptiles like lizards and snakes, adults also occasionally prey on bats and other birds. But their diets can vary significantly by region. For example, in one area near Alberta, Canada, burrowing owls are a major part of their diet. But in Utah, rabbits accounted for more than half of the prey they took. Another thing that makes Swainson's hawks somewhat unique among hawks is that they're social, and outside of the breeding season, they're almost always found in groups. Courting partners perform a sky dance where they soar in circles high above the nest site, and the male will make steep dives and recoveries before rejoining the female. Males choose the nest site, usually near the top of a solitary tree or in a small grove of trees along a stream, a shelter belt, or other trees near agricultural fields and pastures where they can feed. Although both members of a Swainson's hawk pair work on building the new nest, the male brings most of the materials, which can include sticks, twigs, and debris like rope and wire. Nest construction takes up to 2 weeks, with the finished nest, a loose bundle of whatever the male has found, reaching 2 feet, 61 centimeters in diameter, and over a foot or 30.5 centimeters high. The inner bowl, though, the actual nesting space, is about 8 inches, 20.3 centimeters around, and 2.75 inches, about 7 centimeters deep, which the partners then line with fresh leafy twigs, grass, hay, weed stalks, bark, even cow dung or wool. Swainson's hawks may reuse a nest from a previous year, or sometimes they refurbish a crow, raven, or magpie nest. But it's migration where Swainson's hawks truly shine. Swainson's hawks are long-distance migrants. Starting in late August and September, nearly the entire population of Swainson's hawks migrates from North America to Argentina, a round trip of more than 12,000 miles, 19,000 kilometers for the northernmost breeders. A migrating bird waits for the air to warm, then soars on the rising air currents with its wings and tail spread wide. When it reaches the top of the thermal, the hawk folds its primary feathers back, closes its tail, and soars southward, using gravity to make distance as it searches for the next thermal. But remember, these are social birds, so they don't go alone. Groups of soaring or migrating hawks are called kettles, and when it comes to forming kettles, Swainson's hawks are almost the undisputed champs. They can form flocks numbering in the tens of thousands, mixing with turkey vultures, broad-winged hawks, and Mississippi kites, birds they would chase off during the breeding season, to create a virtual river of migrating birds. And because their migration path narrows as the birds move south, and north again in the spring, it creates phenomenal hawk watching opportunities at known migratory points in Texas, Mexico, and Central America. Since they migrate during the day, the Swainson's hawk's migration creates a much anticipated spectacle for birders, who, in the fall and again in the spring, form their own flocks at these points to watch the birds stream by. Now, I'm happy to report that Swainson's hawks are a species of low concern when it comes to conservation. Partners in Flight estimates the global breeding population to be about 900,000. And from 1966 to 2019, their numbers increased by about 1% per year, largely a result of farmers no longer shooting them and other hawks in the mistaken belief that they harm livestock. But as always, things could change in the future. More recently, they've seen some declines due to a loss of prey and nesting sites. Consolidation of small farms, which offer more of the shelter belts of the type of trees that are suitable for nest sites, into larger agribusiness operations, eliminates nesting habitat and threatens breeding population. The conversion of pasture land to soybean fields in Argentina has resulted in a loss of winter foraging habitat. And, of course, there's pesticides. In the mid 1990s, the use of certain pesticides in Argentina to control grasshoppers killed thousands of wintering Swainson's hawks. Since then, an educational campaign and the banning of these pesticides have been successful in reducing mortality, but other pesticides may still pose a threat. And with that, we've reached the end of this Dirt Dispatch. Thank you, my friends, for listening. If you'd like to support the podcast, here's how you can do that. Become a patron. Subscriptions start at just $5 a month, and with 3 paid months, you get some very cool Dispatches from the Forest merch. You can find all the details at patreon.com/dispatchesfromtheforest. You can donate using PayPal or Venmo, and my email address, dispatchesfromtheforest@gmail.com. You can also use that address to email me if you have a question, a comment, or a request for a future episode. You can donate using the Cash App and the hashtag ForestNerd. If you prefer to send a check, just shoot me a message and I'll happily provide my mailing address. Check out the merch store at cafepress.com/shop/dispatchesfromtheforest. Click on products and find something you like. Finally, you can follow Dispatches from the Forest on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. I'm your host, Tim the Nature Nerd O'Hara, reminding you to go outside and get dirty. Dispatches from the Forest recognizes that the lands where we live, work, and recreate are the traditional homelands of the Eastern Shoshone and Northern Arapaho people. We understand that this land holds immense significance for the original stewards, Native nations, and peoples of this region. Dirt Dispatches is a production of Dispatches from the Forest and may not be used or rebroadcast whole or in part without express written permission.